Hi, welcome to The Author Talks by Trishna, Ghost of the Silent Hills, a story based on true hauntings. Let's begin. Episode 1, An Uncanny Attachment. Mashobra is a small hamlet about 13 kilometers from the famous Himalayan town of Shimla. An hour's drive from there through a winding, twisting, narrow mountainous road through a landscape of sheer virgin beauty. With the coming up of a whole lot of hotels, guest houses, and resorts, it has become quite a crowded place today. Once this was no more than a peaceful little village situated in the middle of a thick coniferous forest, stark and glorious. Mashobra is my birthplace. Despite the fact that I spent only the first year of my life here, I have a special attachment to it. The lonely hills supporting a dense coniferous forest, the lush undergrowth, the exotic Himalayan birds, the glorious sunrise and sunset. They all hold a magical attraction for me. I love the intense mystical silence that gets interrupted only by the tweets of the birds or by the chattering monkeys fighting inter-troop battles. And when the wind blows through the bush, it creates its own music, intensely haunting and hypnotizing. This pristine forest is time-worn. Many of these luxuriant deodars, pines, junipers, and oaks standing tall on the slopes have witnessed several generations come and go. They are mute witnesses to epochs of the known and the unknown history. Mystery is concealed in every nook and corner of these mesmerizing hills. I remember one episode from the time I was a little schoolgirl. I had gone with Pa to Mashobra, where he was presiding over a seminar at the Gram Sevak Training Center. His seminar had continued unendingly, leaving me bored and hungry. Our driver, Sant Ram, offered to take me for crispy hot pakoras to a dhaba at Talai, about a kilometer away. I jumped at the tempting proposal. An almost flat undulating patch of the grassland, the steadily rose up into a hillock to the south and subsided into a gradual valley to the north. Talai was a very alluring playground. I chased butterflies around a small, insignificant pond of green, thick scum of moss, while hot pakoras were being freshly fried for me at the dhaba. Once we sat down to eat, Sant Ram informed me, "You know, baby ji, this entire area acquires its name from this humble pool Talai." Oh, my eyes roved around to unearth more mysteries. I then spotted a large mansion hidden behind a thick cluster of trees at the top of the hillock. "Who lives in that house, Santram?" "That's the Faridkot estate owned by the Raja of Faridkot." "Faridkot is in Punjab." Visible from the dhaba was also a dilapidated house. Why is that house so broken and worn out? "No one lives there?" I asked, enjoying a hot pakoda dipped in yummy tamarind chutney. "Oh, baby ji, it is supposed to be a bhutiya bungalow, a haunted house." I stopped munching. My interest in a ghost made me forget how famished I was. I eyed the house in an entirely new perspective. Curiosity and fear were two strong contenders in my young mind, producing goose pimples all over my little body. But I allowed my curiosity to override. Hesitating a little, I asked, "Really? Tell me about it." Santram was quiet for a few seconds. He must have been making up his mind whether to tell me the story. There had been a terrible fire here long ago. I watched the dhaba owner nod spiritedly. His upheld opinion added more flavor to the story. I now noticed the blackened stone structure and the frameless windows and doors, whatever had survived the assault of fire and time. Santram elaborated. The fire broke out at night. The lady, living alone, it was fast asleep and was burnt alive. Some think the fire was started deliberately, a sabotage. It is believed that her spirit still lives in the house. No, no children. Who was the lady? Did she have children? No, no children. She was very close to Raja, his special friend, girlfriend. He had given her this house. Santram explained with a meaningful smile. He thought I wouldn't understand, but I had instantly perceived what he meant. The way he exchanged glances with the dhaba owner. But no one dares to touch the house. People who tried had bad experiences. Once they began removing the breakages. What bad experiences, Santram? I insisted timorously. It will be a nice ghost story to tell to my friends. They fell ill or bad nightmares in which a woman told them to leave her house alone, etc. etc. Santram's pursed lips and enlarged eyes unnerved me, which he didn't notice. No one dares to repair or live in that house, despite it is being located at a very prime site. All of a sudden, it occurred to me that the ghost was perhaps watching me from the ruins. My little body shivered. I hurriedly gobbled the leftover pakoras. Santram, please take me back to Pa. The house, seemingly right out of a horror story, had begun to frighten me. Much later, when I was a young college girl, I came to know about a creepier supernatural incident that had transpired here in Mashobra many years ago with someone very close to my family. It happened before I was born. In 1952, at the behest of the government at New Delhi, a Gram Sevak training center came up at Mashobra and Pa was appointed its first principal. My family lived on the first floor of the main building. Its ground floor had the administrative offices. The lecture rooms and the auditorium were housed in an adjacent building. The students' hostel and the staff quarters were about a kilometer away down the hill, near the famous Courts Garden. The student and staff community wasn't a large one. There were about 20 students and 6 members of the teaching faculty. Only one of the lecturers, Raj Vaidya, was married. It was a mid-January evening of the year 1953. Dark clouds had descended like a gigantic rolling ocean in the sky. It had been snowing non-stop for the past 2 days. 2 feet of frozen vapor covered the landscape, hiding all colors under its white cap. The bitter cold had restrained folks inside their homes. The students and the teaching staff of the center were away on 2 months-long winter break. Only my family and some of the administrative staff had remained behind at the center. The deserted expanse was even more desolate now, and overwhelmingly silent. It was well after dinner time. My parents were in the sitting room, warming their feet in the dying fire at the fireplace and exchanging notes on day's events before retiring for the night. They were jolted out of their reverie by a loud knock on the door. I wonder who has come at this time. Pa got up from his chair to check on the unexpected caller. When the door was opened, in breezed a draught of chilled wind and center's compounder, Krishan Das Negi, wrapped in a blanket over his khadi coat, busheri cap and a home-knit woolen muffler. He stood shivering with a worried frown creasing his brow. Pa quickly shut the door. "What brings you here at this time, Krishan?" Krishan rubbed his ice-cold hands. "Sir, Hari Ram is running a very high fever for the past 2 days, and it's showing no signs of subsiding. I have been giving him paracetamol tablet every 4 hours since yesterday, but it hasn't made any difference to his fever. There is no cough, no running nose." Hari Ram was the peon at the center. "Stomach infection?" Pa asked. "No, sir. No diarrhea, no vomiting. He's complaining for a severe headache though. I fed him half a slice of bread and half a cup of tea with great difficulty. He hasn't eaten anything less the entire day. I don't know what is wrong with him. I checked his temperature before coming to you. It was 105 Fahrenheit. Since the evening he has also been blabbering incoherently. He's very serious, sir. He needs to see a doctor." We must admit him in a hospital immediately." Pa shook his head worriedly. "It is too late now. Driver Pitambar has left and his house is there 3 kilometers away. There is no way we can take Hari Ram to the hospital now." "Oh, not much can be done immediately in this bad weather. Keep cold compresses on his forehead and try to keep his fever down. If his condition doesn't improve by the morning, go and fetch a Pitambar from his house and take him to Shimla to Snowdon Hospital." Krishan appeared dismayed. It wouldn't be easy to plod through mounds of snow early in the morning in the bitter cold, especially if he was going to be looking after the patient the entire night. Pitambar should be reporting on duty around 9. "Sir, even if I leave at 7 to call him, we can't be back before 9. You forgot, Krishan. Tomorrow is Sunday. Pitambar will not be coming. Go as early as you can. Let's not take chances. Oh, yes, sir. I will leave as soon as I can. And Krishan once again retreated into the dark, cold night. There was no improvement in weather conditions the next morning. It was a dark, cold and blustery day. Around 9 there were noises of hectic activity outside. The frozen engine of the jeep took consistent effort and warm water to come to life. Krishan and Pitambar brought Hariram on a chair and lifted him into the jeep. He had lost tremendous weight in few days and looked so piled that Pa was taken aback. A strange, abnormal look in his eyes was frightening. Despite his condition, he threw a weak smile at Pa. "You'll be fine, Hariram," Pa assured him. "Be strong." Hariram nodded faintly. "I'll be back soon," he whispered. Pa stroked his head. "Of course you'll be." Before they left, Pa gave Krishan strict instructions. "Call me as soon as you reach the hospital. I will speak with the doctor on duty." Though he personally knew a few doctors at the hospital, he also knew that it being Sunday, not many doctors would be available at the hospital, except the ones on emergency duty. "I am worried about Hariram's health," Pa later expressed to Ma. "He looked so ghostly pale. I wonder what's wrong with him." Then he added, "Hope the doctor on duty is efficient." By lunchtime, there was still no news of the sick man. If everything went well, they should have reached the hospital by 10:30, maybe 11, even if they went slowly. Pa eyed the telephone. "I had specifically asked Krishan to call me. Why hasn't he?" His restlessness made Ma concerned for him. "Why don't you call to the hospital?" she posed. "I have tried the hospital reception. Can't get through." Pa shook his head dejectedly. "Must have got busy looking after the patient, or maybe the telephone there is out of order. You know it's very common in winters. Wires snag." Ma tried to put his mind at ease. The clock ticked on. There was no information about Hariram's health even by the evening. Finally, at 5 o'clock, Pa had enough of waiting around in tension. Grabbing his overcoat, he got into his snowshoes. "Where are you going in this cold?" "I'll be dark soon." Ma eyed him anxiously. "Where the boys? I have to go to the check." "You can't walk till the hospital, 10 miles away in this snow." Ma expressed her apprehension. "No, I am not going to the hospital." "Of course not. We'll just walk till Talai. I need some exercise." Ma nodded. A short walk will do him good, ease him out a little. She ardently prayed for Hariram's health as she stood at the windows watching Pa trudge through the snow. He had been away for barely 15 minutes when Ma rushed out on hearing the sound of an approaching vehicle. It was the center's jeep. As she had expected, Pa alighted from it. He looked pale and immensely miserable. In an instant, Ma realized that things weren't good. Pitambar got off and rushed to help others from the back of the jeep. Krishan was next to dismount. Then both of them removed Hariram from the jeep. He was wrapped in a sheet from head to toe. Oh my God, what happened? Ma was shaken and upset. Sorry, Mem Saab, we couldn't bring him back alive. Krishan spoke through his choked throat. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Pitambar sobbed openly. He was such a wonderful man. Why did he have to go so early? Ma closed her eyes and silently prayed for the departed. The handsome, cheerful face of Hari Ram hovered before her eyes. He was too young to die. After the initial shock, she hurried inside to her children. She wanted to keep them away from this unfortunate death. They were too tender to be exposed. It was later that the details were divulged to her. That morning the jeep had barely covered the distance of about 4 miles when they come across a huge mound of the snow, completely blocking the road. It was a minor avalanche but couldn't be cleared without the help of Public Works Department. But there was no way to deliver a message to them. A wagon driver who was stranded on the other side of the blockade agreed to return to Shimla and arrange for the required. Hari Ram's condition continued to deteriorate. His body went into tremors and he began to get disoriented. By and by he went silent. The man accompanying him through had fallen asleep. The temperature was dropping fast and the light was fading. They waited and waited for someone to arrive to clear the road. None came. When Krishan tried to waking Hari Ram up to make him drink some tea, he realized he wasn't hot anymore. Had the fever subsided? He then realized Hari Ram wasn't breathing. He tried reviving him, all in vain. Hari Ram's spirit had long been released and his body now lay lifeless. Hari Ram belonged to a remote village in Thiok Tehsil of Himachal. He had lost both his parents, however, his two older brothers still lived in the village with their families. Pa telephoned the agriculture inspector posted at Thiok asking him to inform Hari Ram's family of the misfortune. He expected Hari Ram's brothers to take his body to their village for the last rites. Meanwhile, the body was kept buried in snow for 2 days. When even by the third day, nobody reached Mashobra to claim the body. Pa sent another urgent message. The body couldn't be kept forever. This time he was told that Hari Ram's family was finding it difficult to travel due to the blocked roads. It was left on Pa to undertake the required ceremonies. Early next morning a priest was arranged. He came reluctantly. He couldn't be blamed. It hadn't stopped snowing for the past 4 days. More than 3 feet of snow covered the entire expanse of the town, draping it in white as if in mourning for the departed. Hari Ram's body was taken in the jeep to the cremation grounds. Clearing a small patch, they had the funeral pyre under a makeshift tin roof. It became very difficult to light the damp wood. Finally, Krishan consigned the body to flames after a great struggle and many tins of ghee. The priest half-heartedly chanted mantras for the peace of the departed soul and shivered continuously in the cold. As if this wasn't enough, a raging blizzard struck soon after the pyre was lit. Blinded by the snow crystals, they all had to beat the hasty retreat. The next day, when Krishan and Pitambar went to the cremation ground, they were stumped. Hari Ram's body hadn't burned completely. The keeper of the cremation ground had neglected his job of watching over the burning pyre. They were now in a dilemma. The best thing now will be to do needful in Haridwar, suggested Krishan. Hari Ram's remains were anyway to be taken to Haridwar as customary in Hindu religion. How will we take these half-burnt remains there? Pitambar probed. The interstate bus service has been suspended due to the snowstorms, and I don't think I can take the risk of driving through this storm. We'll get stranded for sure. So don't even make that suggestion to Principal Sahab. Neither were the remains in a condition to be kept for too long. The keeper of the cremation ground suggested burying the remains of Hari Ram in a suitable place, releasing it to be the most expedient proposal in the given circumstances. The men compiled and kept silent over the whole affair. Early March, with the culmination of the winter break, the hustle-bustle of the institute was restored. In the close-knit community of the center, the death of a young man was shocking, almost unbelievable. Hari Ram's affable smile, happy-go-lucky persona, and free spirit had fetched him lots of friends among the staff and students. Now he was so far away from them all. A condolence meeting was held, which was attended by all except one person associated with the community. Raj Vaidya, a senior staff member, had returned without his family. His wife Neema had stayed back to spend more time with her parents. Looking after the younger daughter, just a few months old, was easier with the help of her mother. The routine at the institute resumed. The cold began to wane, and with it the memory of the departed. A new man replaced the deceased, and life's routines continued. Summers arrived in May, and Neema Vaidya returned home. The day temperatures were comfortable, 25 degrees, and the nights were cool. The bright sunshine had begun to spread its golden warm cape over the mountains. The honeysuckle creeper scrambling up on one of the pillars in her house portico was in full bloom and had spread its heavenly aroma far and wide. The chestnut trees was once again filled with prickly fruits. The apple, plum and apricot trees on a hilly terraces were laden with small unripe fruits. May 10, 1953. Around 4 in the afternoon, the routine bustle in the students' hostel adjoining Neema's house was missing. Usually the students returned after classes around this time, but presently the annual examinations were going on and today's paper was scheduled for the afternoon. It would finish at 5. Her husband was on invigilation duty and hadn't come home for lunch. The hectic toil since the morning had exhausted the mother of 2 children. Ever since her return a few days ago, her 7 months-old Chitra had been a bit cranky, taking time to adjust to her new environment. Her 3-year-old Veera was happy to be back with her father and in an overly playful mood. Today, much to her relief, both her girls had decided on a long afternoon nap. It was a warm, languorous afternoon, inducing drowsiness, and Neema took advantage of the opportunity. A short nap of half an hour was very rejuvenating. Once up, she decided to finish her knitting. There was no season in Shimla when the children could do without woolens. Opening the window of her sitting room wider to enjoy a fresh, cool breeze, she sat down on an easy chair facing the window with her knitting. She must have been at her work for barely 5 minutes when she dropped a stitch and got focused on retrieving it. It was then that she had heard a voice. Someone greeted her from the open window. "How are you, Mem Saab?" She raised her eyes from her task to check on the visitor. A man in a loose whitish shirt stood just outside the open window. "Oh, Hariram, I'm fine. Seen you after a long time. How are you? How's Veera?" "Children are doing well, thank you. I'll take Veera with me." "Thank you, Hariram. Not now. She's sleeping." With great difficulty she went to sleep. Neema smiled. "Maybe later in the evening you can take her to play outside." Hariram nodded and left. She found nothing amiss except Hariram had sounded very different. His voice was much deeper and distant, as if he was making an effort to speak. Hariram had often looked after Veera. He was such a fine person. After Chitra had been born, he had been a big help when Neema was struggling alone with the household chores and her children. Before she had gone home to Mandi for winters, he had come so often. Whenever he had some free time at hand, he loved to play with her little girls, especially Veera, a very happy and lively child, and very pretty with a lovely pinkish complexion and large, expressive hazel eyes. Ever since she had learned to talk, she had become a non-stop chatterbox. Neema would smile seeing Hariram burst into laughter at her baby prattle. "It'll be nice if Hariram came in the evening to take Veera out to play. Raj will come home tired and probably won't have the energy." Neema reflected and continued to knit blithely. Thank you so much. We'll continue this chapter, this episode in the next podcast. Stay tuned and subscribe to my channel.